Hello.
Hello.
How's everybody doing?
Good.
Good. I'm probably just going to put myself back on mute while people start joining, but just wanted to welcome you.
Thank you. I will too.
Welcome, everybody. I'm just going to wait a few minutes while people can join.
Terry, real quick, I'm sorry for the miscommunication, but obviously I found the link.
Oh, good. I'm sorry about that.
Hi, Terry.
Hello, welcome. We'll get started in a few minutes here. Keeping an eye on the waiting room so I can admit everybody as they log on.
Hi, Terry.
Hi, Bob. Glad you can make it.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I'm really excited about this meeting, actually. So
Good.
I'm hoping for some good attendance.
You know what? This meeting always has good attendance.
I see Dane. Welcome, Dane. Dane is our newest member of the hot team. Yeah. We'll get started in just a couple minutes. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining me today. This is the February meeting of the Whatcom County Coalition to End Homelessness. My name is Terry Bryant. I'm the director of the Whatcom Homeless Service Center and Opportunity Council, and I'm the chair of this group. I'm really excited for this meeting today. Our topic is going to be really interesting, and there's not a lot of knowledge, I think, commonly held, so it should be really educational. I want to start out, though, by acknowledging that we gather today on the ancestral homelands of the Coast Salish peoples who've lived in the Salish Sea Basin throughout the San Juan Islands in the North Cascades watershed from time immemorial. Please join me in expressing our deepest respect and gratitude for Indigenous neighbors, the Lummi Nation and Nooksack tribe, for their enduring care and protection of our shared lands and waterways. If you would like to introduce yourself in the chat, that would be great. If you include your email, we'll be sure and get you added to the mailing list so you can get future agendas. Okay, our topic today is criminal justice because March is National Criminal Justice Month, and we don't meet in March, so we're doing it in February. But this month recognition was established by Congress in 2009, and it's to promote societal awareness around the causes and consequences of crime, as well as strategies for preventing and responding to crime. The United States has more jails than colleges. I read that today. I was kind of astonished by that. I shouldn't be, maybe naive, but I was. And the United States incarcerates more people than any other country in the world. Our strategic plan to end homelessness, and I'm going to put the link to our plan in the chat here so everyone can take a look at the latest version. Sorry for this. Put it in the chat. There we go. Okay, there's our plan. But our plan really charges us to address disparate impacts, particularly for BIPOC communities and people experiencing homelessness. And it charges us to support interventions to reduce incarceration. And so our panel today, we have a lot of speakers, and we're going to hear more about some of those alternative efforts to reduce incarceration today. So let me just introduce our folks, and then we'll get started. We've got Pamela, Kahn, and Rachel Munroe from Pioneer Human Services, and they provide housing. We've got Tommy McAuliffe from the LEAD program, which is a law enforcement assisted diversion program. We've got Kerisa Zaddack from Whatcom CPTS. Chris Furman, and I think Robin Willins is here to talk about Therapeutic court system. We've got Chief Deputy Don Almer here from the Bellingham Police Department to talk about some stats. And Deputy Klix and Deputy Bauman might be here today. I didn't notice him in the waiting room, but to speak about their role. And then we have Perry Mowrey from Whatcom County Health Department to come and join us. And with that, I think we'll go ahead and get started because we have so many folks that are going to speak. We can go ahead and just start with Pioneer Human Services, unless someone has a time commitment and needs to leave earlier, we can rearrange that. Thoughts on that? Okay. Pamela and Rachel, take it away. Tell us what you do.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Pam Kahn. I am a behavioral health clinician at City Gate Apartments. I'm going to speak with you and Rachel and I are going to speak to you about two programs. The first is City Gate Apartments, and the second is what we call our Flex Group. These two programs are part of the Pioneer Human Services organization. Pioneer Human Services has a focus of serving clients that are criminal justice involved, and they have been at that for 50+ years. We also are supported by the county, the health department, some of our support and funding, which increases or broadens our spectrum into the chronic homeless population. Rachel's going to talk today about the Flex Group. I'm going to talk about City Gate Apartments. Rachel's also going to cover some of our community partner involvement. City Gates Apartments have been here for 12+ years. We have programs, 4 different programs inside of City Gates. So we serve veterans in our VASH program. We serve criminal justice involved folks in our reentry program, and chronic homeless folks in our Shelter Plus Care and SHP units. We have 36 studio units. We serve single occupancy only, no families, no couples. We provide supportive housing services, and those include support with income, employment, mental health services, medical services, whatever the client's needs might entail. This is an independent living apartment, so there's no medication management. We do not do 24/7 staffing here. We do have staffs 6 days a week and pretty much business hours. We have, as the staff members, a program manager, 2 case managers on board, a building manager that lives on site, and then myself as the behavioral health clinician. This is a secure building, so we have a single entry and a camera system to help protect clients and keep it safe here. So that's kind of an overview, and Rachel's going to take it from there.
Hi, I'm Rachel Munroe. I'm a case manager here at City Gate, and I thank you, and thank you for inviting us, and I'm really grateful everyone's here. Lots of new faces. That's wonderful. And I was thinking about what to say here today, and Pam reminded me of one of our core values at Pioneer Human Services that really guides what we do here at City Gate, and that is empathy and accountability go hand in hand. And that's an umbrella that we function under routinely. And I cannot count the number of times either a potential resident or someone referring a resident was thoroughly surprised to hear that intensive criminal justice involvement in someone's history is not a barrier to living at City Gate. It's with some limitations. Most of us are familiar with production or arson or certain levels of sex offenses. We can't do that, but like pretty much every other crime, we work with people and we help people re-enter society and we support them. And in doing that, we worked hand in hand. We worked very closely with community partners all over Whatcom County. We receive referrals specifically from Opportunity Council and the Homeless Service Center, the Whatcom Homeless Service Center through coordinated entry. And we also receive referrals through Department of Corrections. And those referrals we work with through our Flex group. And we may house someone for around 3 months at a clean and sober house and case manage with them prior to, if there's a space, moving them into City Gate. So they get used to the weekly case management and the goal setting and working together with the case manager. We also get referrals. We used to get referrals from the jail liaison, and we're looking forward to resuming that relationship with the Whatcom County Jail. And of course, as Pam mentioned BASH and also mental health court. And we really appreciate all of those relationships where we can work hand in hand to support people in getting housed and then building their own independence so they can eventually move on, up and on and out into independent living. We also work very closely with pretty much every behavioral health agency in Whatcom County. Grace and lead teams are our friends. The probation department, Bellingham Police Department, clean and sober houses, and other SUD agencies. And we practice transparency. We deeply appreciate open lines of communication. We believe it takes a village, and we work together with community partners to support the people we serve. And of course, that's with respect for residents' privacy and their well-being. I don't know if I was too fast, but that's all I got.
I think we did good.
That was great. Thanks so much. And I probably should have done a little housekeeping before we began here. I think it might be best to keep our Q&A to the end because we have so many speakers. I want to make sure we hear from everyone. So thank you so much for that. Okay, next on my list is Tommy. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Thank you.
Yeah, so in attempts at introducing myself, my name is Tommy McAuliffe. I am the program supervisor for Whatcom County's Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion. We go by LEAD to keep it short. So what LEAD is really a voluntary program that's dedicated towards intervening in the lives of individuals who are having frequent interactions with both law enforcement as well as the criminal legal system. And when we're thinking of intervening, we're intervening through intensive case management services. Our team construct really looks like 4 intensive case managers with 1 outreach coordinator. Each one of those intensive case managers carries a caseload of about 15 to 20 clients. And we try and meet with each one of those clients at least about once a week, hence the name intensive case management. When we're thinking of primary job duties of what our intensive case managers and as well as our outreach coordinators conduct day to day, it can really change, and it's really diverse. But it really looks at similar to providing a helping hand to clients that are immersed in the criminal legal system, and really acting as a middle person between the client and the defense attorney and helping that client get to court, while also helping the connect clients with more common social service needs, including housing, transportation, behavioral health treatment, substance use treatment. And a lot of times it's simply a social support and interaction, someone to talk to through challenges that they're facing while they're going through the criminal legal system. A lot of times our clients are feeling alone, so being able to have someone to simply talk to and be that buddy, professional buddy essentially is what we like to call it, and be able to help them with whatever they're facing. When we're looking at the population that we're serving, the majority of our clients are really facing extreme poverty. A lot of them are in need of transportation assistance. It should be noted that over 60% of the population that we're serving is also experiencing homelessness, and that are currently enrolled in the LEAD program. One unique aspect of our program is the referral process. And this is actually my favorite part of the LEAD program, just because we accept referrals from all community partners, not just law enforcement, but all community partners, including social service providers, law enforcement, prosecutors, defense attorneys. We've also accepted referrals from family members, as well as currently enrolled LEAD members who've noticed the program benefit their own lives, and they're trying to help their friends or other family members that may need additional assistance in the legal system. And how that referral process works is once I received a referral via email, fax, or simply speaking over the phone, I'll take that referral and bring that referral and all that information to what we call a biweekly operational work group. And that's really the unique thing about our program is this operational work group is where we go over all our historical information we have about this individual and collaboratively come to a consensus on whether this individual would be a proper fit for the LEAD program. And when we're thinking about who consists within these operational work groups, it's really traditionally siloed entities within the legal system. So for example, defense attorneys, a representative from the city attorney, a representative from Whatcom County Prosecuting Attorney's Office, all law enforcement, representative from all law enforcement agencies has been invited, as well as probation office, as well as the program managers from the therapeutic courts that are here today, Chris Furman and Willins as well. And so after a client is approved for LEAD, and an assigned intensive case manager will actually start that outreach as well as the outreach coordinator. And then they'll go out in the community and really meet them where they're at, both physically and metaphorically. You don't need to be sober to be in LEAD. And they will ask them really what they need or who they would like to be connected with, and what type of services they need. And whether the individual decides to work with LEAD, that's really the start of the relationship-based intervention that we're bringing forward with the LEAD program. That's all I got.
Thanks so much, Tommy. Really appreciate it. Okay, next on my list here is Kerisa Zaddack, and I don't know if I pronounced your name right, and I really apologize.
It's Kerisa. Can you hear me?
Yes, Kerisa, welcome.
Perfect. So I am the facilitator for CPTS, which for Whatcom County. CPTS, there is a county by county group throughout the state of Washington. Some of them are no longer meeting due to COVID and choosing not to do it in a remote environment, but Whatcom County specifically, we're doing our meetings via Teams every single month, fourth Tuesday of the month. Really the idea of the group is the group's made up of agencies and individuals that we're working together to support successful transition for people returning to communities after incarceration. We have a pretty good group going on right now. We collaborate with each other, ask for help, ask for resources. If there's specific needs of a specific client, say somebody is struggling, maybe I'll use the example for housing, getting somebody lined up for that. They might do in the round robin, might ask for some tips or advice. Some kind of examples of the individuals that, or the groups that attend. We have Employment Security that attends every month, Opportunity Council, Goodwill. We have some people from the jails from time to time as well. And I try and have a presenter every month. Last month, we had somebody from the community college come in and they told us all about the BFET program. Next month, I have HireQuest, which is a local staffing agency. She's going to present for us, and they are felon friendly. So she's going to explain like what requirements she has, or like what she looks at as far as getting those individuals lined up with a job. It's a pretty casual group. We just get together every month and talk resources. And I'll put it in the chat. I have a really good resource link that I will put in there for you, but it goes county by county and it gives different organizations and services that are available to individuals. I think that's kind of just a CPTS in a nutshell. I actually work for the Division of Child Support. So I have a couple of specific programs within child support that I've shared at CPTS as well. One of them is called abatement, and there's some new laws that came out that if an individual is incarcerated, their child support will automatically be adjusted down to $10 a month until 6 months after their release. And then we also have another program called Alternative Solutions. And what that does is if we have an individual that's facing barriers in our caseload, they will kind of do more than, we'll do a case management style where they will look at individuals' barriers and help them get connected with housing, help them get connected with food and medical and all of those things, so that eventually they can get to a point of paying their child support timely. And I think that's all I have.
Thank you so much, Kerisa. I really appreciate it, and thank you for that work that you do. Am I still sharing my screen? Okay, thank you. We get us back on track here. Next up are Therapeutic Court. So we've got Chris Furman and Robin Willins here to speak.
Hi, my name is Chris Furman. I'm with Whatcom Superior Court, Therapeutic treatment courts. I oversee family treatment court as well as felony drug court. And so I'm here to talk about felony drug court. We've been around for about 22 years. We take folks that have a pending felony in Whatcom County, not any felony, but most felonies. Folks come into our program, they complete the program, and they have that felony charge dismissed. So for a lot of folks, that's a really important piece of the program, because having a felony on your record really gets in the way of so many opportunities. We I think one of your things, Terry, that you said was myths about programs, and I think it's a myth and I think it's the truth at the same time, but we often hear how difficult drug court is, when really we provide a lot of wraparound services. We work with many of you that are here today very closely, and help people learn how to live clean and sober, learn how to be accountable, and then learn how to have goals and purpose in their lives. So that's really difficult for a lot of our clients, because they come to us with at least moderate, but almost always severe substance use disorder, methamphetamine and heroin addiction. Pretty much 100% of them are homeless when we get them. Takes about 18 months to get through the program if you're super on task, and you can get done in 12 months, but it's typically an 18-month program. We work with Whatcom Community Detox and Lifeline Connections and get people off to inpatient treatment. We work with all of the clean and sober houses. We don't currently have anybody at Citygate, but we have worked with them. And we have dedicated funding, and we get people into housing and get them stabilized in housing. We monitor them very closely. We see them at least 3 times a week, face to face. We shut down for a minute during COVID, but then people really fell off. And so we said it was more dangerous to have people die of overdose than it was to die of COVID. So let's come and see you. So once a person is stable and clean and sober, we start looking towards the future, and we require people get a job. And so we work a lot with Goodwill services and job training and learning how to get a job, or we require people to go to school. If they don't have their GED or high school diploma, that's a requirement of the program. So by the time you leave drug court, you have at least 3 months of sustained recovery. You have your education and or a job, you're paying your taxes, and you're not doing crime anymore. That's our goal, is to have people step away from the criminal justice system. A lot of times our clients, well, I won't get into that, but yeah, that's basically it. We have I believe we have a very high success rate, and we take some very, very difficult clients. Since the Blake ruling, as I'm sure many of you know, decriminalized possession of substances for personal use. That didn't really affect us that much, because we take people with a lot of robbery and property crimes. So all of our referrals come typically through the public defender's office to the prosecutor. The prosecutor makes a decision whether or not they want them in drug court, and then we screen them here to make sure they're appropriate and we believe can benefit from drug court. And it's nice to see so many familiar and friendly faces.
Chris, I feel like it's been 3 years since I've seen you, and I don't think I'm
know.
exaggerating.
And you're Opportunity Council is one of our best partners, and yeah, so it's really nice having so many amazing partnerships within the community for these folks. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Robin, did you want to talk a little bit about mental health court?
Oh, I would love to. And I don't know if I can share my screen,
Sure.
but I just want to put a bit of a summary because I probably can't get through all of that. So is it shared right now?
Yeah.
Okay, so mental health court, very like similar to drug court. I mean, it's a therapeutic court. We're really looking at wrapping around somebody who's been involved in the legal system. Variety of charges that we see. We have mental health court in our district court and in Bellingham Municipal. So we have two separate mental health courts. Really, when we're looking at who's eligible, eligibility is diagnosed with a serious mental illness, and really that the charges are related to, like that there's a nexus between the charges and symptomology of the mental health and the mental illness. And so when we look at that, and when we're screening, we also have a lot of co-occurring. So I think some of the people co-occurring with substance use disorders, we've got a screening process that, people come to us in all different states, whether or not a lot of people are not adequately housed or housed at all. And some people are connected to mental health supports and some people are not. And so it's really looking at that wraparound support so somebody can be successful. We have a couple of exclusions, but you do have to be a Whatcom County resident. Referral process, very similar to drug court. It comes from their defense attorney. But if you have somebody that you feel like might be appropriate and might benefit, by all means, feel free to reach out and, we can have a conversation and then direct you to the defense attorney to go through that process, and they could tell you if they're legally eligible. And again, the prosecuting office, that application is submitted to them, and then they would give me the go to make sure that they're a fit. And really what we're looking at is that wraparound support that will help people engage in their mental health treatment and also do all of those things to have those healthy, successful lives. And housing is definitely a huge piece of it. The program's been in place since 2015. I've been in this position since May. And so definitely COVID and COVID shutdowns, I think, and the shutting down of the court slowed everything down. And we're definitely picking up right now, which I'm really happy to see that we're going to be serving a lot of different people. Chris, I think to contrast a little bit with drug court is all kinds of different charges, and it depends on the agreement between the prosecution and the defense with what happens after the person completes mental health court. We get a lot of felonies that are dropped down to misdemeanors, and when they complete, depending on the agreement, the felony is not on their record, but they might have a misdemeanor. In municipal court, they complete it, and those charges tend to go away. So it's hard for me to say, like, this is going to actually happen. As part of mental health court, there's 5 different phases that focus on understanding your illness and healthy living and goal setting. The program is 18 to 24 months. Yeah, you've really got to be on top of things, but you can get through it in 18 months. But it really, like, the expectation is that it's a 24-month program. I included a couple of the stats from our Bellingham Municipal Court over the last 5 years. We don't have the longitudinal results because we've only been here since 2015. So, but yeah, housing support, transportation support, mental health, medications, it's all part of what we try to connect. And we work with case managers in the community through like Whatcom Center, Unity Care, Compass Health. We've got a lot of incredibly strong partnerships, which is wonderful.
Thanks so much, Robin. Really appreciate that. Okay, next on my list, Chief Deputy Don Almer, who I asked to come and talk about some crime stats. I know that the mission has been working with you around that topic a little bit. Do you mind speaking for a bit?
No problem. Thanks for having me. Caveat, they got me a new computer. I'm not too computer savvy, so if I freeze, somebody needs to go like this, and then I'll just type really fast or something like that. because 90% of the screens are all locked up. So I don't even know if this is going through. So hopefully it is. My name's Don Almer. I'm the Deputy Chief of Operations at the Bellingham Police Department. Thanks for having us here. I got asked to provide some statistical information, but I'm also going to, for those of you who haven't seen by now, we as an agency, we appreciate working with service providers and programs to have effective strategies in place and to collaborate with partnerships to not only to reduce homelessness, but to reduce incarceration and things like that. Many of you have worked with certain people in our agency in certain roles. And so if you don't know by now, our agency, we have basically cut every program we have to reallocate it all to patrol. So like we no longer have our behavioral health officer program. We no longer have our outreach service programs. They're all just back on patrol because of our staffing challenges right now. So if you have worked with a certain person or have belonged to a service organization that says, hey, who should we contact? My email's in that huge chat thread. So we don't want to drop the ball on here, but like we're kind of trying to pivot right now as to what program is going to link with what person, because like our outreach lieutenant, he just got told he's going to patrol probably in 2 weeks because that whole division no longer exists. So we have a plan in place to hopefully right that ship, but it's gonna take a while. So I don't want you fine folks to feel like, hey, Bellingham Police is kind of off the map and abandoned, but we just don't have the staffing right now to do anything other than respond to 911 calls. And some of your clients and some of you partner organizations know that sometimes our response, we're looking at like 3+ hours on some of our calls if they're not priority. So I appreciate your patience and understanding, but if you have anybody that needs to know the why, feel free. It's not the happiest of messages that I provide, but I'm the messenger for that. So that's that. But with regards to today's presentation, a couple people asked me to, sometimes I can be the stat go-to person or the data nerd here at the agency. So they said, hey, do you see any correlation with like, there was the drop-in center on West Holly, and then there was base camp downtown. You know, is there any statistical correlation you can say that when this exists here, crime is here, or this, that, and the other? As we all know, it's a multitude of variables that factor in as to whether or not crime is occurring for a certain reason. But statistically, right, we used to go to the drop-in center all the time, like all the time. Then base camp was placed downtown. We tend to go to base camp more often now. And because the drop-in center is gone, we hardly ever go to that area anymore, right? So I don't want folks, you know, some in the community are like, oh, crime's up because base camp. It's like, well, that's not really the case. And statistically, we are dealing with, I think personally, having taken many a fun stats course in school and things like that, stats are going to say a lot of times what people want to say. We're looking at increases and decrease in things, but I think that's based more on our reporting and what we go to. So to put it in perspective, I did a 2-year data analysis of our NIBRS reporting, which is information based on if you write a report as an officer, solidify that report, process it through, and there's a certain crime listed, that crime statistic gets logged, right? So if you're on hold for 3 hours and want to report that your car got broken into, and then you go, well, they're never going to come, click, and you don't report it, that doesn't go into the statistical database, right? So we look at the stats, and you know, those people who are like, crime is up, they can look at some statistics. Well, you could say that statistically we are going to far more assaults, far more auto thefts, far more burglaries and things like that. And then other folks go, well, look at your crimes like on drug offenses, they're down 70%. And like, right, because we don't go. And it's not that we don't want to go, but like that dropped from a felony to a misdemeanor, and thus also priority from like maybe 2 or 3 to like 5 or 6. And so when someone calls and goes, oh, these rapscallions are possibly ingesting some kind of drug over here on this bridge, by the time we get there, not only are they not ingesting drugs, there's no people because it's like 4 hours later, right? So that offense doesn't get logged because it's a gone on arrival, right? So, but at the same time, anybody who goes, well, you know, drug usage in Whatcom County is down, I don't think you find folks are going to go, oh, we wholeheartedly agree, right? So our statistics, although, we provide them and we want to be transparent with that stuff, there's so many caveats to all that information where it's like, hey, you talk to the average patrol officer, property crime is through the roof, right? Especially like, I think we had stolen cars. There were like 18 in one day last week. So it's like, oh, okay. So we're dealing with that and running around coupled with our patrol shortages. It's not oftentimes that we are able to do the proactive or the community oriented policing that you can see. And thus our statistics will show that, like any kind of public nuisance call or public order call. If you're a downtown merchant, you see, I see it all the time. With respects to our reporting, you hardly ever see it because, again, by the time we get there, the person's no longer urinating in the alley or, tagging the building or something like that. So it's not meant to be a doom and gloom a message to you fine folks. We are committed to these partnerships and we want to help it work because if you've heard any of my other presentations, every officer here is fully supportive of alternative response. Every officer here is fully rooted in, like, a badge and a gun doesn't need to go to every call. We get that. And we are not the ultimate solution for all the problems that are in our society. We get that too. Sometimes, as you folks know, I think we are the first step in maybe plugging them into services when otherwise they would refuse. And we're happy to help in that way. But, I've been here since 1995 and dealing with some of the same people over and over and over. The best we can do as an agency is, hey, we have to commit to assisting services that prevent either homelessness or incarceration reduction. If we can assist with partnerships that provide shelter for those who need it in times that they need it, we always help out with warming shelters and things like that. What we can do, traditionally non-law enforcement roles, but then you folks have processes that have to cycle people into more permanent solutions, and how we can help in that, and I mean it. You just need to let us know how we can help and what we can do. And again, please don't take offense if there's a limited response or sometimes seemingly a long delayed response. We are committed to helping, but right now we're just scrambling to see where those programs would go internally for us or who your points of contact could be. So I'm happy. I know I gave statistics out to a couple of people. If you ever need anything, let me know. I have it all saved up for your perusal, but I do give a pretty big caveat that, like, hey, just don't look at it and go, oh, okay, that must be the truth. There's a lot of stuff behind it. And hopefully that's what you were looking for from a presentation. But like I said, I don't mean to kind of, everyone was being so positive and Donnie came and it was such a downer. But I do want people to know I'm big on transparency, and like, I'm a candor guy. So it's like, here's what we are. Like right now it's 4 o'clock and we have 10 officers for the whole city. So we have to triage calls and we have to triage priorities. And sometimes that means we get to folks who truly need help in non-law enforcement ways, but because of that delay, we obviously don't want them to slip through the cracks. So you folks telling us how we can help you, that's going to go a long way, because maybe we can pivot or adjust resources necessary to help with that kind of stuff.
Thank you so much. That was really helpful. And I just want to add that I caught your presentation to City Council and didn't understand until I watched that it's not just the staffing crisis you have now, but what you're anticipating in terms of a lot of officers retiring in the coming, future. So, and I think all of us doing any kind of work right now are probably experiencing staffing shortages. I don't think it's unique to this work. I think it's that's the way it is right now, and we have to do the best we can with what we've got while we actively recruit and try to staff back up. So thank you. I don't want to keep talking. Next up is Deputy Klix. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me. And sorry, my partner Lonnie couldn't be here today. We completely spaced, both of us, that he had training today. So it's just me. But I'm a behavioral health deputy for the county, and there's 2 of us. Lonnie Bauman is the other one. And I guess the kind of general rundown of it is so our behavioral health deputy program works very closely with LEAD and GRACE. We're embedded with them. We kind of have our own caseload that we work on, trying to get people in services that might not qualify for LEAD or GRACE, that are kind of falling between the cracks. And our role is kind of to deal with high 911 utilizers, and try to respond, figure out what resources might be helpful and try to get them in touch with those resources. The most challenging thing that we have would be the people that we're working with who are not wanting resources, but are high utilizers of the emergency services. So I know that's a struggle for all emergency services, the ER, the fire department, all PDs and the sheriff's office. So that's not unique to us. I don't have cool statistics like Dawn does, but if you ever needed them, I might be able to pull some. I'll have to figure out how. But I can definitely just echo what he was saying, where property crimes are through the roof. I mean, it's my partner and I were talking just the other day how crazy it is to us with the increased stolen vehicles when they changed the pursuit policy of the state. So any kind of legislative acts have direct impact on the entire public, not just law enforcement. And that we're definitely seeing that with those recent law changes. Luckily, they're trying to put forward some Band-Aids for the chaos that was created with 1310 and those other bills. Hopefully, according to Prosecutor Ritchie, it should be pretty promising. So I'm hoping to see some change soon in the positive. We definitely, on our end of things, the biggest hurdle that put in our way was getting people resources when we have custody authorizations. And for those who don't know what that is, a designated crisis responder from MCOT, which is our mobile crisis outreach team, will respond, evaluate a person and determine that they are gravely disabled, a danger to themselves or a danger to others. They can then write a custody authorization, and that would it would allow us under their kind of their authority and our authority combined, we'd have a solid reason to take someone against their will, possibly need to use force if necessary. But to be honest, I don't think I've ever used significant force on anyone to get them to the hospital. And that way they could get the help that they need. When 1310 came around, that totally took away our ability to use any kind of force on people to get to the hospital. So a lot of departments were looking at that as even handcuffing is a use of force, which later on the Attorney General agreed with. So now we're dealing with trying to fix those errors. So we've seen, Grace, Lead, all of us combined, MCOT, we're all working together trying to figure out how to navigate these waters. We don't think that we are the necessary Band-Aid for all wounds of society, right? So we're definitely open to alternatives. We just want to make sure that they're safe. That's the biggest thing. And that people have appropriate training on situational awareness, being able to protect themselves or understanding when to recognize pre-attack indicators, all that stuff. And one of my biggest pushes with Lead and with Grace has been, we have to get that training out to anyone who's going to be responding in the field with mental illness. There are way too many people that working for, and this is my opinion, there are way too many people working for our local organizations and businesses who don't have any training in that, and who are also encouraged to transport people in their personal cars or those kinds of things. And I would really like to see that change. If there's anything I could really encourage, is the more we walk away from having a law enforcement presence, the more we need to make sure that those people are trained properly on how to protect themselves, and to recognize when a situation starts becoming dangerous, because currently not even our firefighters have that training. So the legislative session came out, made this big change, and the only people who had any training on defensive tactics or control techniques or anything has been law enforcement. So we need to make sure that we're not the only ones with that training, but that's going to come down from those companies, Unity Care, the health department, probably being, a big push in making sure that it's available to everyone. Now I'm just on my high horse, sorry. But I think you all hear what I'm saying. Our biggest thing, we don't want to see anybody get hurt in the process. So we are not we are not mental health professionals. We are cops that care. And we've taken on an additional role with some additional training, but we don't have a degree in psychology. We don't have, we have online trainings, and we go to 40-hour classes about crisis intervention, but we're not out there diagnosing people, but we want to be a part of the solution. So just like with what Dawn was saying, if there's any questions that you have, any ideas that you ever want to run by me or Lonnie or Dawn, reach out to any of us. We are eager to see change, and we're eager to help in any way that we can. Law enforcement in general, and I don't mean this to sound brash, but we don't want to be, that's not the kind of calls that we want to be dealing with on a constant basis, right? We'd rather be out, stopping crime and getting the bad guys, rather than trying to get people contained, and we'd rather have the services working and be focused on crime. And so in order to get there, we need to make sure that we support you guys in all that you're doing. So that's it.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Okay, from the Whatcom County Health Department, Perry Mowrey. Do you mind speaking a bit?
Sure. Thanks, Terry. I appreciate the invitation, and I see a lot of folks that I've met before and that I work with. Hello, everybody. I'm Perry Mowrey, Human Services Supervisor with the Health Department. My supervision responsibilities are really oriented towards the behavioral health area. I think many folks are aware that my boss left a while back into retirement appropriately, and Deacon, and I've stepped into, along with Ann Beck, the other supervisor in the Human Services Division, stepped into just a role and covering a lot of those components for that Ann Deacon was holding at that point. So that's some of the activity that has been going on recently. So I was really trying to sort of give some thoughts to, there's a number of ways that human services, individuals throughout human services interact with support in terms of individuals in the judicial system. And so I'm not listing all of them here, but I thought that I'd throw out the ones that at least came to mind for me, or that are taking up a fair amount of my time from day to day. The first one is really the Whatcom County Crisis Stabilization Center. I think most everybody is pretty familiar. We opened the new Crisis Stabilization Center in January of 2021. It's a 2,400 square foot facility with two providers. Those providers are Pioneer Human Services and Compass Health. The services that are available there are withdrawal management services through Pioneer Human Services, and also mental health stabilization with Compass Health. Both of the providers have 24/7 nursing staff. That was the design. As we moved into the new Crisis Stabilization Center, we actually, to some extent, increased the level of care to include the nurses, being 24/7 and other services that are going on there. We have also, since we've been open about a year at this point, we established a Crisis Stabilization Center Advisory Committee that meets once a month. There's representations of the providers, law enforcement, and in addition to other individuals that play a role in the Crisis Center Advisory Committee. And it's really super helpful. Basically, what happens there on a monthly basis is an open forum for individuals to, from their perspective, to be able to bring in, experiences, challenges, continued development, et cetera. And I think that has been a really successful process. We definitely have some components that we want to improve on, and both of the providers are really willing to take a look at that and move forward. there's also, and it was a little while back that we did this, and we announced this in some of the meetings that the health department facilitates in the community, but there's a crisis stabilization systems improvement form that's online. I'll send it to Terry because I'm technologically challenged and don't know how to put it in the chat box. So, and it's really long, so I'm not going to try and do that. But that's a sort of the short version of the Crisis Stabilization Center. I very much act as a liaison with the Crisis Stabilization Center and the service providers. And so I'm trying and sort of put those pieces together and individuals that bring, a variety of perspectives to that. So that's been a really interesting aspect of the work that I'm doing and plan on continuing that. So shifting from that, I think that most folks are aware and maybe even have historically been involved with the Jail Behavioral Health and Reentry Services Program. The county, the health department administers a contract relative to the Jail Behavioral Health Program and Reentry Services. At this point, that is the service provider is Lifeline Connections. And have been doing some really good work in some really challenging times, as folks know, gaps in resources and gaps in professionals. The overarching goals of that behavioral health and reentry service program are to provide crisis stabilization within the jail, the work center, and the juvenile detention facility. And address behavioral health needs, and those are triaged to a certain extent in terms of level of risk to the individual. They provide clinically necessary services to those incarcerated individuals with serious mental illness and serious emotional disturbances. Also engaging the individuals in as they're releasing to the community, a really important component and aspect that has, as folks have made reference to, been lacking just in terms of staff availability. It's very much an orientation because we definitely get that period of time of an individual being released and hopefully getting to a resource that's been identified for them is extraordinarily important. If the individual can get connected to those resources through much of the systems that we've been talking about today, they have a much higher likelihood of success in terms of their ongoing growth. There's obviously suicide risk assessment. That's something else that happens within the jail behavioral health services, and then engagement in services. They also have case management within the contract. There is a case management process for up to 90 days after that release, and that is connecting that individual to ongoing care, ongoing services, which many of you are obviously involved in. Right now, that program design consists of 3 mental health professionals and an additional reentry individual that is working with folks, and a supervisor. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how that's going to develop. Most of you know Jackie Mitchell. She actually administers the contract there, and I think does a really great job in terms of interacting and communicating, supporting the individuals that are providing the service. Most have heard, we've gotten to talk a little bit about LEAD, and folks are obviously currently aware of GRACE, the GRACE program. At this point, kind of an interesting experience is that we are developing a new division within the health department. That division, at this point anyway, the name of the division is a Response Systems Division. GRACE and LEAD are slated to actually come under health department, county administration here in the near future. So they will be sort of the initial component of that, as well as folks are probably aware that the health department and other stakeholders have been involved in the development of an alternative response team to support some of the processes that Deputy Almer and Chief Deputy Almer and Deputy Klix and the others have been talking about in terms of law enforcement involvement with individuals that are in need of services. And the alternative response team is really being designed to go to calls that really don't need to pull down that time of a law enforcement individual, that they can be better used in other situations. And so I'm really looking forward to that alternative response team development, and it will be under the response systems division as well. Folks may be cognizant of the near to developing a recovery navigator team. If I understand correctly, they're going to join Tommy's lead group. And these folks will be oriented specifically towards substance use disorder, whether that be involving an individual in assessment, getting them engaged in services, that kind of thing. And so the recovery navigator team will also be a part of the new division, as well as myself and other behavioral health specialists, contract administrators that will be a component of that. I believe that mental health court will also be a component, and I don't think that that it's limited to that. I think that there are other possibilities. It hasn't really been defined yet beyond that of which other programs will consist in the response division, but those that I listed are fairly certain to be a component of that. Lastly, it's a little more sort of backing out in general. I don't know how much folks are aware of the Justice Project that is going on at this point in time that has to do with taking a look at the jail, the needs of that, development of that system, and the Stakeholder Advisory Committee. There are actually a number of different individuals from the health department that are involved in that process, in part just developmental meetings and that kind of thing, but in part also offering subject matter expertise in regard to behavioral health needs within the incarcerated individuals and the resources that would be necessary for individuals in that setting, because we know that a large number of individuals that struggle with behavioral health issues are obviously incarcerated. And so some pretty active in that process, and that'll be going on over the next couple of years. It got suspended for a while because of COVID and now is back open. And again, as I sort of shared as I was starting out, that there's certainly other aspects of the health department being involved in working with and supporting processes, certainly not the least of those being the individuals that are involved in housing homeless and human services, as well as a veterans program and et cetera. So, but that's probably enough right now. And I'll stop there. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, Perry. Really appreciate that. I'm kind of glad you went last because we heard a lot about the challenges of COVID, challenges of legislature, of staffing, and this is kind of ending our presentations on an optimistic note because I think a lot of those changes upcoming are positive and will be really good for our community. Well, we're right on time, so I can open up for questions. You can unmute and ask, or if you want to type it in the chat, I'm happy to read it out loud. Silence.
I'd like to ask a question of Kerisa with DSHS. So when you mentioned the $10 a month child support while in jail, I was curious about that. Does that affect back payments due? Because one thing that we had a lot of was people would get booked in with large amounts of cash. And it used to be that child support would be taken out of that because it was money owed. Is that something that would change then? So the other parent wouldn't be able to access that money?
So it does not change that enforcement. So if somebody gets booked and they have cash on them, we still send out notice to take that and apply it towards their child support. The abatement specifically is looking at adjusting orders. So say their child support order was set super high, like I'm just going to use $500 a month. It will automatically put it down to $10 a month for the entire time that they are incarcerated. And then it actually continues for 6 months after they are released. And what it does is it makes it so that you don't have to modify a court order and go back to court. It's just now what they call boilerplate language, in the fact that your monthly support might be $200 a month, and then we get notification that they're booked in jail for at least 6 months. We will automatically just accrue the debt at $10 a month for that time frame.
So does DSHS have some sort of supportive funding for the spouse who's not incarcerated with the children?
No, so yeah, so there is no support as far as the custodial parent goes. What happens is they just go a time frame without regular payments, or we encourage individuals, if there's low income, to apply for a TANF grant, so a cash assistance grant, and then the state of Washington will recoup whatever cash assistance was paid out. So does that make sense? It's kind of
It does. It's just, so I worked at the jail for 6 years before coming to patrol, and we would see people trying to navigate the system because they would know that they owed a huge amount of back paid child support. And yet they would have hundreds of dollars on their commissary accounts to buy Snicker bars and honey buns. So
yeah,
there was a lot of people that would navigate that by getting, their celly so that people could put commissary money on their celly's account. But one thing that was heartbreaking while we worked there was getting the phone calls from the single parent who's on the outside left with the kids, asking how they were going to make ends meet when the other person was incarcerated. And I just can imagine that's going to create some hardship for some people. And I wonder what the program, I would hope that they'd have something built into that program to assist those people on the outside.
Yeah, we generally, if they're really low income and they don't have, so say a single mom doesn't have any sort of monthly income coming in, if they go on the cash assistance grant, they're gonna, I don't know what the current amount is, but I think it's something like $500 a month. The state will issue that amount to them every single month. And then on the child support side of it, the non-custodial parent who's incarcerated is racking up $10 a month that they will eventually have to pay once they're released.
But there won't be any limit on their commissary accounts or anything like that. Like they could.
There's no limit. So the only funds that we're allowed to pick up is if, say, they have $10 or $25 in their pocket when they are first booked, we can generate that. We are not doing a lot of that because of COVID. There was a lot of stays on what we call enforcement. So there's if an individual is not paying, there's pretty limited things we can do. We had to put a pause on like suspending licenses, for example. And we're slowly going to go back to being able to do that. But even pre-COVID, it was just if they had funds on them, in their possession when they got booked, is what we can take. We can't take anything from like an ongoing account.
In jail? Oh, it happened that way when I worked there.
No, so it will revert back to that hopefully once they lift the COVID part of that.
Okay.
Alex White asked a question in the chat about the police department's ability to enforce trespass. So that information's in the chat. It's a pretty detailed answer. I'm happy to read it if folks would like me to. No? Yeah.
Or just on chat. So the question was the ability for officers to assist when somebody needs to be escorted off the property if they're not leaving willingly. I actually just attended a meeting with all the, I hope I say the word right, hoteliers or people who run hotels and motels and stuff. It's kind of a fancy word. I'm like, oh, that's like a charcuterie board or however you say that word too. But we commonly at Bellingham Police, and it might be the same for the county, we commonly get the, hey, we need to trespass this person. And so I just went off this huge media campaign with the Downtown Business Partnership and all the downtown businesses. If you know Peter Fraser, he'll have all my documentation and can just send you that email and all those forms. But for us as law enforcement officers, we have to have a non-discriminatory reason for trespass, right? And so like when I tell businesses, hey, you can't just go, that person looks dirty, get him out of here. That's nope, we can't help you. I'm a big signage guy. Anyone who I've ever worked with businesses or anything like that knows that. So it's the, hello, I have a template that I send out to everybody. It's just like, hi, this location reserve the right to refuse service for the following reasons. And it has to be actually, you can't just say you have brown hair, right? It has to be like criminal offenses or, assaultive towards members of the property, or this is the kind of like the no shirt, no shoes, no service. And we like those conspicuously posted in areas. That way we can tell people when we show up, hey, Donnie's here. I'm a business owner, or I'm somebody authorized to give a trespass. Donnie's here, he won't leave, and he's in violation of our terms and services, right? I'm in McDonald's throwing stuff around and hitting people, right? That doesn't need to be clearly posted, other than it always helps, right? But that's a non-discriminatory reason for trespass. So we can go, currently House Bill 1310, the use of force laws, if I have probable cause that person's committing a crime, I can go hands-on if it's objectively reasonable, necessary, and I take reasonable steps to know that, hey, other alternatives either are not feasible or they're not going to work, right? I'm not going to stand there for 3 hours and tell the person, you need to leave, you need to leave, you need to leave, right? So that's the biggest kind of like, oh, it has to be non-discriminatory, right? Otherwise it's more of a private security matter. So if we get there and the person goes, all right, I'll leave. Okay, they leave. The trespass is no longer occurring. I'm not going to arrest that person for trespass. I can't. The trespass is over. If they stay, obviously I can arrest for trespass. In Bellingham, I also have to have our officers and our supervisors explain the why. And arrest looks different. Most people, when they hear arrest, means somebody goes to the jail. That doesn't occur. The jail's on some booking restrictions due to not only COVID, but they have some safety concerns in their building, and they just have to limit population, right? So like a trespass is not going to be a book. That's just, we can call and see if there's room. Like they need to prioritize what they need to prioritize. So I support them in that. But I might come to your property. You might say, hey, Donnie, I have the authority to issue a trespass. This person, violated this clearly posted rule. I want you to arrest them for trespass. We say, okay, we look and go, hey, you're going to get arrested for trespass if you stay. Is it your intention to be arrested for trespass? If they say no and leave, awesome. I can give them a trespass form and say, don't come back. Or if they go, yeah, you're going to have to arrest me. Okay, then we can arrest that person. But arrest for us might be, okay, we put them in the car. We literally drive them 6 blocks away and go, okay, we can't book you into jail. So we'll get you out of the car, unarrest you. Here's your ticket. And then the property owner will go, well, what prevents them from coming back? Exactly. Because our officers might be going to the other call, right? So that's the difficulty we have due to the current situation we are in the sense that not only booking restrictions, not only our prioritization of calls, that triage, things like that, but a lot of people just go, well, we don't want them trespass. We just want them moved along. And I have to stress to people, we can't, that's outside the scope of our authority. I can't do that. I can't act as an agent and go, hi, for some unknown reason, these people don't like you, you need to leave. That's going to be viewed by many people as potentially discriminatory, and we just can't do that. So if a business goes, hey, I want them to leave because they're loitering in the store, they're not buying anything, and look, it's a posted condition of usage, right? That's an entirely different story. But then that person has to be willing to say, yes, and I want them trespassed, right? Because if they go, no, I just want them moved along, that's going to go to a priority like 8. And we probably won't, we have other things that we need to do, right? And that's just the reality of the situation. But then again, we're always going to be open on how that kind of stuff works. That being said, there's nothing to prevent somebody from requesting a non-discriminatory trespass. We get there and that kind of thing happens, but it is frustrating for some people. Even if we ask the jail, hey, you don't need to book and hold, can you just book process? They'll print them, take their photo, do all that kind of stuff, supporting that. So it's a little bit of a longer process, but at the end, they're not held at the jail. They can walk right back, right? Then they'll have to call us again and things like that. We have after hours trespass authorization forms on file. So if anybody, that during hours of darkness or when it's closed, we don't authorize anybody to be on the property. They can't loiter, they can't sleep here, they can't do what. If you need a copy of that form to get that in our database, that way we don't need to call you at 2 a.m. and ask, hey, it's okay for this person to be here. Just email me at that thing and I can get that to you. But a lot of people, that's a misnomer. It's like, well, we just want to move along. It's like, we technically can't do that. Well, you used to, back when I was a rookie, but the laws have definitely changed, right? And we need to, in many ways, not exceed the scope of our authority and just willy-nilly do kind of things. We have to do things tighter. We're under more scrutiny, and just the letter of the law is the letter of the law. So that's the trespass thing.
Thank you. Any other questions for our guests? I'm just thinking about all the information we just absorbed, and it was a lot. And I'm kind of quasi familiar with most of these programs. And I imagine if you weren't, it would be a lot of information to take in at one time. So I can understand why maybe there aren't questions at the ready. Deputy Klix.
Sorry, I keep asking questions, but I actually have a question for you. So at the beginning of this, you referenced national incarceration numbers. Do you happen to have incarceration numbers both locally, Whatcom County, and state to compare to the national numbers that we could discuss?
Was that question for me?
Mm-hmm.
Because the answer is no, but that is a really good idea and we should do that. Any other questions?
Could we repeat Deputy Klix's question again, please?
I think the question was, did I have statistics nationwide that we can compare locally or even at the state level and have a discussion? And I'm not prepared with those statistics, no. Did I summarize that right?
Yeah, it was just about the incarceration rates locally and on a state level to basically give a comparison. Because I hear a lot of discussions, not only in this group, but in all the groups that I end up being a part of, that we refer a lot to national numbers. And one thing that I think we've proven, even within our state, is that Whatcom County is unique. And Whatcom County is doing a lot of great things, in my opinion, with all of our mental health resources and our outreach and our diversion programs and even picking up lead. And so I'd like to see us start to look at our numbers and compare it to our state numbers and then compare that to the national numbers. I think that gives the whole picture. And I think the whole picture is a really important thing to view.
I'll put that together and send it out after the meeting.
Because I'm a stat nerd, I know DOC used to track data analytics for Department of Corrections in Washington State. I don't know if they still do, but they used to post all that stuff on their website. So that might help from a state level, from a DOC thing, but I don't know if it's going to drill down to like the local and Snohomish County Jail or the SCORE facility or anything like that. But
and I don't know if everybody on this chat knows, but if somebody's in DOC, if they're in prison, you can only get to prison with a felony. And so that's something important to think about too, is like, okay, what are our DOC numbers like compared to other states' DOC numbers? Jails house everybody until you're sentenced, and they will only hold you through your sentence if it's a misdemeanor. If you have a felony, you'll spend the rest of your time at DOC. So, so there's a lot of information to sort through there.
A couple questions came up in the chat. Steve Clark is asking a question about the alternative response plan. So maybe this is for Perry. Any thoughts on the rollout, makeup? Is it under Grace supervision? Is Perry still? Yeah, there you are. Perry, I think you're muted.
Could you read that one to me again?
Sure. The question's about the alternative response. Any thoughts on the rollout, the makeup of the group, or is it under Grace supervision?
It is not at this point in time. It hasn't been finalized, so I'll just preface it with that. That way, I can crawdad out of any specific questions that anybody wants to try and corner me with. But I don't believe that it'll be under Grace supervision specifically. I could have elaborated a little bit further. The current plan, as I'm understanding it, in terms of the alternative response team, is likely a EMT, and a behavioral health specialist. The idea and concept here is that these individuals will respond to a certain level of call that really doesn't need to be handled by the fire department, by law enforcement. And there are a number of those kinds of calls that occur. As a matter of fact, Deputy Chief Almer was making reference to some that it's like, okay, is it a possibility that the behavioral health specialist can be a part of that team and respond to an individual and maybe ascertain what do they need, kind of thing. Now, they may not be able to be successful with that, but the point and idea is that there are many, many calls that we're expecting law enforcement and others to go to that their time is obviously is being, relayed here is really better used someplace else. If it is a medical situation, again, an EMT, that may, and the hope is that those individuals are connected by radio to dispatch. If it's a more serious situation, they obviously back away from that situation and report that back to dispatch. That's the design of that process actually occurring. And so the supervision won't necessarily be under Grace, but there has been discussion of the supervision of that being under the new division. And that is the response division, Grace being a part of that. Hope that was clear.
Thank you. Go ahead, Chief Deputy Almer.
With respect to alternative response team, I know we've been discussing sometimes our analytics to our city council and things like that. I just, like Deputy Klix said, we're all fans of that alternative response team in law enforcement because there's a lot of stuff that traditionally law enforcement, it's not a role. It's just as certain services have been taken away by the state or moved or anything like that. It just, for decades, it just, well, call 911, right? And police or fire are going to respond. Oh, and it's this, okay, it's police. And like Deputy Klix said, like I don't have a degree in that kind of stuff. I'm not clinically able to diagnose things. I know when there's somewhat, wow, that's strange behavior and can act on that if I think imminence of harm is coming. But yeah, it's a difficult kind of role for us because that's not our thing. But simultaneously, I'm with Deputy Klix on this. We want folks to be safe. And if we're utilized as like, hey, you've been doing this for decades now, tell us what are some ups and downs. Like I told one of our council members, hey, if you have an alternative response team and it takes 10% of our call load, that's 7,500 calls a year. If you divide that by 12 months and then divide that by 30 days, that's 20 calls a day. That's just in Bellingham. And those calls take 2 to 3 hours, right? If you're going to really de-escalate, diffuse the situation, get them, hey, on board, and let's go to the hospital, let's go to services and stuff. So it's not going to be just like, hey, it's, Don and Jerilyn, that's our team. I mean, it's going to be a lot of people. And I would rather have, one of my old mentors said, Donnie, done cheap, done fast, done right, pick 2. Right. So it's like, I don't want to rush a project that is just in flames in the first month. So I really appreciate everybody's input and thoughtful, measured approach to this because A, I don't want to see anybody get hurt, but B, I think folks also need to understand the scope of, oh, this might be a heavy workload. And not only that, but there are going to be some calls like Perry said, where cool. Yeah, we got to call the cops. We want to get that person help. And maybe we're designated crisis responders or we're part of the alternative response team, but that person has a pipe and I'm not going to talk with them, right? It's because I don't want to get hurt. So I think that's where these discussions are valuable because, from a law enforcement perspective, we can offer you all our, and then I walked up and he hit me. So I was like, yeah, don't get hit. So think about this. And I think Klix nailed it on the head to where it's like training, that's a big deal. Awareness, that's another big deal. And we just want to be partners in that and go in where everybody has eyes wide open on that. So.
Thank you. We're getting a little short on time, so I think we're just going to shift into updates. Katie, do you mind giving an update for the city?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Terry. And thanks everyone who's spoken today. It's been really great to hear more and learn more about these different programs. I have a few city updates. I'll do my best to keep it brief and get through everything in 5 minutes. The first update I want to note with this coalition is an update on the city's downtown safety ambassador program. The Downtown Safety Ambassador Program is a new program that is set to begin this spring and will be launched by both the Downtown Bellingham Partnership and the city. The program is a result of work the city has been doing with downtown business community and downtown service providers to assess the needs and develop additional strategies to support a clean, safe, and welcoming downtown area. The ambassador program is intended to provide outreach and business assistance and hospitality services in coordination with other downtown service providers. It is set to be a 2-year pilot program and will be funded by federal ARPA recovery dollars. I have a presentation that my colleague Darby recently gave to City Council on the program, and I can post it in the chat for folks who want to watch the video and learn more. So I'll do that after I'm done with these updates. But I wanted to note that until that downtown ambassadorship program is finalized and brought online, a different temporary service is going to be put in place to provide a bridge until that new downtown safety ambassador program is operational. So as an interim measure, the city has contracted with local private security company Risk Solutions Unlimited to provide safety patrols within the downtown core. It started last week. The patrols will be 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and are anticipated to continue until the spring when the ambassadorship program is put in place. The RSU security staff will be identified. They're going to be unarmed. They're going to be trained in de-escalation and customer service, and will provide additional eyes on the street to assist those in need and support other downtown service providers. I will post my colleague's number in the chat afterwards if there's any questions or if anyone wants any more information. I can also post the phone number for RSU in the thread as well. The next update we have is an update on the Families with Children facility. So we're moving forward in earnest on phase 2 of the feasibility and scoping work for this project. Conversations continue identifying a project owner and developer, as well as a long-term operator. We hope to have more clarity on this in the spring, and we will update folks once we have more information. The next update we have is on the Northwest Youth Services Young Adult Winter Shelter. A few weeks ago, Northwest Youth Services, who has been operating the Young Adult Winter Shelter out of the locker room at Civic Field, needed to relocate temporarily to accommodate an overflow facility for IQF. They moved and they are now operating the program out of the indoor pavilion at Maritime Heritage Park. This move is temporary, but the program will operate there for an undetermined amount of time. The operations of the young adult winter shelter are still the same and still in effect. It's going to be an overnight only operation, and intakes begin on site at 7:30 p.m. And it will aim to service young adults between the ages of 18 to 29. Please take note of this move, and if you make referrals, please make referrals accordingly. The last update I have on the city side is in regards to our severe weather warming center. So us at the city have been working in coordination with the county to plan for an emergency response in case there's another severe weather event, such as we saw at the end of 2021. We're planning 2 distinct operations. The county's taking charge of planning for the overnight operation, and we at the city are planning for the daytime operation. The daytime operation is going to be a severe weather warming center, which will be activated during a severe weather event and would operate during daytime hours from 8:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. in the downtown library. Right now, we're finalizing our operations plan for the center so that the operation can be placed in operation immediately if activated. And we will be working with our community providers to help announce to the broader community if and when the center is placed in service. So that's all the all the updates I have for today. Thanks, Terry.
Thanks, Katie. There was a question real quick. Do the safety ambassadors have training in trauma-informed care?
I'm not sure about that point specifically. The city's right now planning to contract with a nationwide organization that provides similar services in other jurisdictions. I think about 90 other jurisdictions. But as far as their expertise on the training side, that's not something I'm certain of. So I can post my email in the chat and follow up on that for folks who have questions.
Thanks, Katie. Barbara or Chris, did one of you want to do an update for the county?
Yeah, I'll give an update for the county. Hi, everyone. I work for Whatcom County and with my partner, Chris D'Onofrio, and I work in the housing program. So a lot of the information I have is related to that program, obviously. So I'll follow up just a little bit on Katie's update on the emergency weather shelter, because my supervisor, Ann Beck, asked me to pass on some information about that as well, and hopefully won't duplicate what Katie provided, and asked me to talk about the temperature thresholds that will be mapped out, that have been mapped out in the severe weather guiding assumptions. So they will use those to make the decision to open emergency weather shelters. So that would be 28 degrees forecasted as the overnight low, or precipitation of 2 inches forecasted, or on the ground if the temperature reaches 32 degrees threshold. So if any additional information is, if anyone would like more information about that, I'll add my contact information and Beck's contact information in the chat box when I'm finished here. As far as other housing news, we've got, we found out in the last couple of weeks that we'll be getting an additional $500,000 from the state, and that will come in state and federal funding for housing programs, both for rapid rehousing, permanent supportive housing, case management, rental assistance. However we choose to use that, and we always collaborate with our partners when we make those decisions. And we're also, the housing program is going to be offering an information session for housing providers about meth use in housing units. This will be facilitated by our environmental health staff on Thursday, February 17th from 9:30 until 11 o'clock a.m. So this basically will be our environmental health staff providing updated information about how for housing partners related to mitigation for meth contamination, cleaning units, the role of environmental health in that process, and also to provide information, answer questions for housing providers. So if anyone is interested, my email is way up at the very beginning at the chat box. Feel free to send me an email and we'll make sure that we get you the information needed. And then Chris, I think you wanted to talk about the point in time count.
Yeah, I was just going to give a super quick update. The point in time count was postponed this year due to the COVID surge. The peak of our hope is it's a little better next month. So 24th, and we will take some time to look over the data and write a report, but you will all have that shared with you in the coming months. The only other thing I wanted to mention was that we are in the midst of a legislative session down in Olympia. There are a number of housing related bills being debated and moving through committees. If you're not familiar with the Washington Low Income Housing Alliance, that's a great agency to kind of help you keep watch on what's going on, and they'll also advertise opportunities to advocate. You know, as county and government staff, we have some limitations on what we can do, but for the general public, this is a really great way to get in touch with your legislators, let them know what's important, and just share your thoughts. You can sign up to speak. A lot of it's being done remotely. So from the comfort of your home, you can have an influence on the laws that govern a lot of what we do. So I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Thanks, Chris. Now I can cross two things off my list of announcements for this Homeless Service Center. Advocacy Day this year felt really rushed, and it was my first. So we met with our 42nd district representatives today, and some other advocates met with the 40th, I think it was Tuesday. And the things that I think we were able to get across our priorities pretty well. We followed the Washington Low Income Housing Alliance's data points and talking points pretty closely. I spoke to the importance of continuing FCS, which if you don't know is Medicaid Supportive Housing and Supportive Employment. And that's a really huge resource for case management support for staffing to pair with subsidies that are for people who need permanent supportive housing. And if we don't have staff to support the subsidy, then we can't move people in with those dollars. And that is just so painful when we have so many chronically homeless people who need it. So that's what I spoke about. Also, I urged them to approve in the budget an increase of ABD from 197 to 417, which I know is not a big bump, but I think it will make a huge difference for a lot of people. Marissa McGrath spoke about housing, and Mike Parker spoke, and he was our lead, and I can't remember what his points were, but he was here earlier. Maybe I can put him on the spot. Oh, he left. I'm sorry. Anyways, it happened today. It happens every February. Next year, we're going to be more assertive about it and really energize this group to participate and have some training sessions in advance so that we can plan our strategy and make sure that we make the most of the 15 minutes we have with our legislators. We'll see. The city graciously expanded the outreach team, which was great. And we've staffed up. So we've got Dane Daniels, who's here brand new into the team. I'm really excited to have Dane on the team. I feel really weird because I have not seen him in person yet. That'll happen. That'll happen. And also Chase, who was our housing lab case manager, has joined the outreach team. And since Chase had a move from one service center position to another, there will be openings coming up to replace Chase, and also our landlord liaison position is vacant. I'm looking to do a little restructuring before that's posted, but we'll be recruiting for that. But right now, we also have some opportunities for program assistant, because Jasmine Carpenter, who takes all the notes in this meeting and sends you all the agendas, is moving on. And this, I think her last day is tomorrow. We'll be sad to see her go, but looking to replace Jasmine with another person to do just as many great things as Jasmine does. And also we have a couple of temporary positions too. So if anyone's looking for work, check out opco.org online. It's not just my department that has openings, there's a lot of opportunity. And with that, that's the end of my update. We can open this up for public comment if anyone would like to speak. Okay, well, I want to thank everyone for spending this hour and a half with me talking about this topic. It's really important. I'm so appreciative of our presenters. Shovia, did you want to say something?
Yes, I have put my questions in the chat. Is there a reflection of diversity among the new ambassadors for this Risky Solution program? That's my first question, because as you know, as African-American people of color, as well as immigrants, we are we have heavy surveillance. We're followed on the streets, in the stores, everywhere, consistently. So I don't know how much this new program has thought about that in their discussions, because we don't see security as friendly, rather we're innocent or not. So I just wanted to know if there was, will there be diversity among those ambassadors?
I can answer that. I think that's a great question. Thank you. I'm not entirely too certain about program specifics, unfortunately, but I can absolutely follow up on that. If you want to follow up to me via email in the chat, I can connect with the contract manager and get a little bit more details about those program specifics.
Okay, because I know coming from Western Washington, that would also be very discerning for a lot of students to have to do, not to say that everyone's good and don't need a little bit of checking up, but you do have students that are not, of age. You have a lot of students that come in at 16, 17, and 18 years old. And they may be out, late, because that's what students do on the weekends. So that was my concern. And the other question was more to the police force. Maybe I'm misinformed, and please educate me. I thought that you all received some extra funding that was geared towards the alternative services, and where is that money going since your staff was cut? How, I don't understand where. So, did you receive extra funding?
Chief Deputy Almer had to leave for a call, so I don't think we have anyone from the Bellingham Police here right now that can speak to that.
Okay, that's fine.
But that is a good question. And I'll see if I can't make a connection. And then I should also say, welcome Shovia to the group, because she is new to the steering committee for this group. And so I can make an email introduction between Shovia and Katie and facilitate that conversation.
Okay.
I don't want to miss Vaughn. Vaughn's got his hand up.
Oops, that's not the right. I don't know how to change that camera angle. I'm sorry. I'm gonna stop.
Okay.
So I guess when you were saying that without proper staffing, you can't use the funds to get more people housed, the subsidized housing. And I was wondering, like, sometimes I feel like I hear folks who want to volunteer and they want to work, and but they don't have the training, or they don't have an educational background. And I guess I'm asking, what would be a nice moderate amount of education that is mostly accessible to most people, that would then they'd be ready, to step up and into a program and staff our programs.
That is such a good question. And I don't supervise any case managers, so I'm scanning the participant list to see if I have anyone who's supervising case managers who could speak to those minimums.
If Tommy's on, he might be able to answer the question of what the qualifications are to be a lead case manager.
Thanks, Jerilyn. Yeah, I can answer that question. So I will explain my experience thus far. What I currently have is a master's degree in public health. And with that experience, I'm born and raised in Whatcom County. Whatcom County is close to my heart. So I think with that being said, knowing your community, as well as having the educational background that specific agency mandates, I think that'll be most beneficial. And I can't speak for all agencies, but with CMAR Community Health Centers, it was a master's degree in public health.
Thanks, Tommy. That gave me a little bit of time to look up our own job postings at Opportunity Council. So one of the requirements for a housing case manager right now is there's, and I don't want to say requirements, but this is what is listed as, the education, experience, and training needed. Case management experience in social services, a working knowledge of issues and resources and related to housing services, working with people who live with mental illness, people who experience chronic homelessness, experience working with people who have substance use disorders, knowledge of chemical dependency signs and symptoms, a driver's license, a good driving record, and being able to submit a driving abstract. And so there's not a real high criteria there for education. So I think a lot of folks who maybe have the interest and are working with those populations should really focus on maybe experience that would be equivalent in other types of work they've done, if that makes sense, and translatable skills. And we need staff. So I would say to anyone who is interested in this work, just apply. The worst thing that can happen is nothing, right? The best thing that can happen is you might get a job. So go for it. Lon, did you have another question?
No, that was it. Thank you.
Anything else for the good of the order? Okay, thanks again, everyone, for joining me. Our next meeting will be April the 7th. Same time, same place. Thanks so much and have a great evening.